Liam Ohgren scores his first career NHL goal as part of a multi-point game, something that Marcus Johansson has done 4 times this season. And the Minnesota Wild ride the youth movement to a win over the San Jose Sharks here tonight by a score of 6-2. It's late. A lot to talk about here for tonight's game. So let's fire up another Locked On Wild postcast.
You are Locked On Wild postcast, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Minnesota Wild pick up a 6-2 win over the San Jose Sharks. Boy, are the Sharks bad. And it was a fun slice of youth that led the win for the Minnesota Wild. Thanks for tuning into a very late Locked On Wild postcast here tonight, as we have a lot to get to here in this one. Liam Ohgren scores his first career NHL goal. Jesper Wallstedt gives up 2 goals, gets the win. Marat Huznadinov picks up a point as part of a solid effort for him. The youth was on full display here against the San Jose Sharks. Kaprizov scores a couple of goals. Matt Boldy picks up a goal and has a multi-point game. San Jose is they're real bad. Real bad. They have been all season. So let's dive into this one a little bit, as obviously the Wilds get out to the early lead, but the Sharks rally to tie it at 1-0. And then they cut it to 3-2 as the Wilds get a goal from Matt Boldy to start it. Jan Ruda scores to make it 1-1. Then Chisholm and Ohgren score to make it 3-1. And then Mario Ferraro scores to make it 3-2. Then Kaprizov scores twice. And Marcus Johansson scores a goal assisted by Alex Goligoski and John Merrill. And that one put me in a bit of a pretzel because if you've listened to this show at all, that has been quite the combo that has been discussed throughout the course of the season. So for all of them to combine their powers into a goal, that one put me in a very, very big bind. But let's talk about it. Liam Ohgren tonight, I thought looked really good. And I know we didn't postcast last night because honestly, I was too pissed off to postcast after that game last night. An embarrassment against the Vegas Golden Knights. I thought Ohgren and Huznadinov were probably 2 of the best players on the ice last night, and they carried that into tonight's game. And it was great seeing Ohgren score. Took advantage of open ice in front of Mackenzie Blackwood as he was sprawled out to try to make a save. Net was open. Nice backhander to get his first career NHL goal. But then he also assisted on the Declan Chisholm goal, and the broadcast was talking about this right at the point that it happened, saying how Ohgren wants to be somebody that can win battles along the boards and can be a power forward type. And right as they're talking about it, he wins a battle along the boards, able to kick the puck out to the top. And Declan Chisholm and John Merrill play a little catch, and then Chisholm just lets one fly from the top of the zone. It's that quick decision-making stuff that I really like about we've seen this from Declan Chisholm all season. The quick decision-making, and it looks like Liam Ohgren is able to add to that with some of the things that he did here tonight. And so great 2 games for Ohgren so far. His first multi-point game of his NHL career, his first goal of his NHL career. Marcus Johansson, by extension, in 76 games, has 4 multi-point games. And so that was great to see. Kaprizov continues to be just an absolute monster. 44 goals on the season, and he had an assist as well. He's got 49 assists. So he is Kaprizov with 2 games left, especially if the Los Angeles Kings decide to rest some people. Selfishly, we have an outside chance at a 100-point season here. Selfishly. Would be something great to get in these final 2 games. Kaprizov just continues to be a monster. Matt Boldy's got a career high in points. He's 2 goals away from 30. It was the young players that led things in this game here today, but it also underscores what has been a problem for this team all season. We got the graphic during the game that the Minnesota Wilds have the 29th most goals by players who record 14 or fewer minutes in a game. It's that secondary scoring again. And you look up and down the score sheet, and a lot of the veteran guys scoreless in this one tonight. Your fourth line, scoreless tonight. Again, it is it is something that is not going to be a problem playing the San Jose Sharks because, again, I cannot underscore enough. They're real bad. For instance, some of the underlying statistics, Mackenzie Blackwood tonight in net. This is courtesy of moneypuck.com. He had an expected goals against of 3.41 tonight. He gave up 6. So he had 2.58 goals saved below expected. That's just real not great. Jesper, by extension, he had a expected goals against of 1.48. Gave up 2 goals. But I thought he really did a good job of kind of settling in as the game went along. And look, we ideally want to see Jesper get opportunities against teams of higher caliber, but I have no problem with him getting an opportunity to get his feet wet against the bottom feeders, against the Chicagos, against the San Joses, where you're going to face a lesser volume of shots, which allow him to just kind of let the game play out without having to just routinely face just these flurries of shots. So I thought Jesper was good here tonight. This is not a hot take, but this is something that is going to be non-negotiable for me for next year. I think Murat Huznadinov needs to be one of the main 4 penalty killers for next year's team. I know you're facing the Sharks, but the fact that Huznadinov had a few shorthanded opportunities in this game, he is going to be a weapon for that penalty kill in the same vein that Connor Dewar and Brandon Duhaime were. Oh, and he also can play pretty well too. So fun to see, and I continue to like seeing Huznadinov and Ohgren get paired together. But let's also talk about this, because I was upset before the game that Adam Beckman didn't play. And then tonight you go with the 11-7 lineup, but Kirill Kaprizov getting a shift with getting a couple of shifts, I think, with Murat and Liam Ohgren. Matt Boldy got a shift with those 2 guys. I'm okay with that. Getting an opportunity to just see how those guys fit together. I'm fine with giving Kaprizov opportunities that wouldn't normally exist to play with those guys to just help generate more opportunities for them to do their thing. So was initially not super thrilled about that decision, but honestly, if it leads to Boldy and Kaprizov playing with those guys, that's fine by me. All in all, with 2 games left in the season, it gets you to 38, 32, and 10. And the fact that the Eastern Conference teams that you are battling with in the draft lottery Minnesota Wild are currently 12th. Currently 12th in the draft standings. And so those teams can continue to jockey for points. Probably not going to beat the Kings, and then you maybe beat the Kraken at the end of the season, although who's to say there? So a lot to like from the youth in this game here tonight. But beyond that, I mean, it was another one-shot game for Marcus Johansson. He had 3 miss the net. Including one that was directly in front of the net. He was between the face-off circles, just had wide open space, and he sends it over the net. And I got to tell you, people, when he did that, when that shot went over the net, as opposed to even, it doesn't even count as a shot on goal. It's a shot attempt, but not a shot on goal because he missed the net. It just about threw me off the edge. There has to be something that spot. And I went to the cities a day trip to the cities today. So I was in the car listening to Beyond the Pond for one, and it was brought up. What do you do in that spot if Marcus Johansson doesn't play there? And I'm just screaming in the car, put anybody else there. Like, of the things that are most frustrating as to how this season played out, I think the fact that you put a guy who now has 43 out of 76 games, 43 out of 76 with 1 shot or fewer. I think the fact that we continue to see that on the second line is probably up at the top of the list. But hopefully that will be addressed in the offseason. I guess we'll wait and see. But all in all, very excited, very fun game to see a lot of the achievements, for instance, for Liam Ohgren. That was top of the list. Declan Chisholm with a sweet goal. Fun to see those guys get an opportunity here. Fun to see Jesper get another win. Fun to see those guys take advantage of their opportunities here tonight. And we've got 2 more opportunities to see some of these guys before the offseason hits. That's my 2 cents, 10 cents for tonight's game. If it's 2 cents, it's still one more than Marcus Johansson shot attempts. He did score tonight. I mean, again, Johansson from Goligoski and Merrill, and I just laughed to myself because, like, if we could have gotten that, I don't know, 15 more times, 20. Anyway, that is kind of my 2 cents. Let's get yours as we continue a very late Locked on Wild postcast. Minnesota Wild pick up a 6-2 win over the San Jose Sharks. We will take your questions after we come back here on tonight's Locked on Wild postcast. Tonight's Locked on Wild postcast is brought to you by Factor Meals. Eat stress-free this spring with Factor's delicious, ready-to-eat meals. Every fresh, never-frozen meal is chef-crafted, dietitian-approved, and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. Choose from a weekly menu of 35 options, including popular options like Calorie Smart, Keto, Protein Plus, or Vegan and Veggie. Also discover more than 60 add-ons every week, like breakfast, on-the-go lunch, snacks, and beverages to help you stay fueled and feel good all day long. What are you waiting for? Get started today and fuel your springtime goals. Get chef-prepared meals on the table in 2 minutes with Factor's ready-to-eat meals so you can get back to doing what you love this spring. Head to factormeals.com/LockedOnNHL50 and use code LOCKEDONNHL50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next box. That's code LOCKEDONNHL50 at factormeals.com/LOCKEDONNHL50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next box while your prescription is still active. Tonight's Locked On Wild postcast also brought to you by Indeed. When you're drafting your fantasy team, do you ever wish you could handpick the best stars for your business team? If you're building your talent roster, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Find top talent fast with Indeed's suite of powerful hiring tools like matching, assessments, and virtual interviews. Join over 3 million businesses worldwide using Indeed to hire great talent fast. Indeed knows when you're growing your own business, you have to make every dollar count. That's why with Indeed, you only pay for quality applications that match your must-have job requirements. Visit Indeed.com/lockedon to start hiring now. That's Indeed.com/lockedon. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application pricing not available for everyone. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Welcome back to tonight's Locked On Wild postcast. I guess I should say this morning's Locked On Wild postcast as the Wilds pick up a win 6-2 over the San Jose Sharks, a game that started at 9:40. We were heading to the third period and it was 11:30 p.m. One more West Coast game for the season. And it cannot get here fast enough. Let's get to the comments. Quadrum gets us started. It's a mix of feelings as Kaprizov scores more goals. He's heating up just at the right moment with only 2 games and no playoffs left. The key thing here, Quadrum, is knock on wood. Oh, God, I shouldn't even say it. You know where I'm going with this. The key thing for Kirill is that he will be able to avoid what happened last season. Again, knock on wood. If I jinxed it, I'm going to. So he'll be able to go through the full off season and should then theoretically be ready to rock full bore come next season. And we're going to look at the pace of the Kaprizov, Boldy, Eriksson Ek line because they played something like 9 minutes, 28 seconds together here tonight. 9:21. They were responsible for 20 shot attempts in 9 minutes together as a line. They throttled. Yes, it's the Sharks, but they throttled the Sharks in the shot attempts department. They scored 2 goals as well. Kaprizov scored them. Well, actually, no, because Kaprizov had 1 on the power play. So Boldy and Kaprizov both get 1. That's going to be your top line next year. And that line has an opportunity, if those guys all stay healthy, to do some real scary things for the rest of the division. So it's not going to surprise me. I mean, Kirill is at... What is he at after tonight's game? So he's got 49 assists. He's got 93 points. If he stays healthy next year and he is even remotely close to where he's at right now, it's going to be another 100-point season for Kaprizov. So I think he is in a much better spot, obviously, than he was at the beginning of the season. And so now the hope is that he just, through these final 2 games, is able to avoid what happened last year. Ohgren's first goal and first assist of his career. This is why you let the kids play. Got to let them develop so that they can be ready for next year. And especially like I think the best case study in why the young players should play is what happened with Jesper. He played against the Dallas Stars. It did not go well, but what did he do? He took it to heart. he worked on some things down in Iowa, and he came back, and I know it's against lesser opponents, but he still looked good in both games. And so that's why we talk so much about using this opportunity to give these guys the opportunity to just see where they're at. What do you think Murat Huznadinov and Liam Ohgren are going to do this offseason? They're going to use these games that they played as a measuring stick for where they're at and the areas that they need to improve over the offseason, whether it be adding some poundage or working on shots or whatever it may be. You use a little taste of NHL play to just kind of measure where you're at. It's a measuring stick. If you don't give that opportunity because you continue to just put guys in the same spots, that's where it gets frustrating. And so, like, you just need to, like, these are valuable opportunities, even with the team not in playoff contention. These are valuable opportunities for these guys to be able to work on some things, because I know it's 2 games, but you mean to tell me that Liam Ohgren couldn't play a role on this team next year? You mean to tell me Murat Huznadinov doesn't have a role cemented for next year? Like, and those are all possible because they get the opportunity to see where they're at and what they need to work on. Here, this is why we went to the greater good as early as we did. So we had the opportunities for the Ohgrens, for the Huznadinovs, for the Jespers. So they get the opportunity to see where they're at and to build off of it. Make sure everybody plays more than 14 minutes and your secondary scoring problem is solved. I like that. Can we please sit Marcus Johansson for the next 2 games? He literally throws the puck away during extended zone time. There was one play in last night's game in which he basically just got, like, pushed out of the way, like bumped slightly. Maybe it was even just and had control of the puck, lost it, and I believe Vegas scored almost immediately after he lost the puck. And this is part of the reason. This is kind of going hand in hand with all the talk about the fact that this team needs to get more bigger or more physical. That's a perfect example. Is Johansson just does not bring any of that to the table. And if you get somebody in that spot, yes, you would ideally like to have a wide arcing amount of speed and skill. If those guys can be physical enough to win puck battles. Like, if you just get moved off the puck every time you have it, you don't bring a ton. And if you're racking up one shot or fewer, like you're going through the express lane, like if you're just racking up those types of games, that's not gonna cut it. So I'm all in favor of just being done with the experiment entirely. Like, I'm all in favor of moving on after the season is done. Like, you just could do so much better in that roster spot. And, well, thank God you're not the GM. I'm not the only one that feels that way. There are many people. Russo was saying it. Russo was saying it in the latest Worst Seats in the House. Like, it's time for the experiment to end. It hasn't worked. It didn't work 20 games in. It hasn't worked since. It's time to move on. And it's time to just try to find something else that works in that spot. It's a valuable spot. It's a key spot for a team. And if you're going to do any better next year than you did this year, you have to have a second line that can keep up and can give you somebody else that can score if your top line gets shut down. They have to do better in that spot. And Marcus Johansson just has never been the guy there. He was the guy for 20 games last year and has never been the guy since. Shark Boy Ben, I think, unfortunately, is correct. It just feels like the team and it's now, I think, 23 games that Beckman has played. Yes, he hasn't scored. I still will make the point that I don't think he has been given a good enough opportunity to showcase his skills. But it feels like at this point, the team has seen all they need to see, which is disappointing because Beckman was asked to work on his defense more. I think it was last year. And so he went down to Iowa. He played third line for a good majority of the season to try to be more physical. It just doesn't feel like he was given the proper opportunity to see what he had. But the team evidently feels like they have seen all they need to see, which is why I think Shark Boy Ben is right. I think he's gone. I think he'll be gone at the end of the season. And, that's unfortunately how it goes sometimes. I would be highly in favor of seeing him get an opportunity over these next 2 games, but we've been clamoring for that for a long time, and it just has not been there. So, yeah, that's kind of where we're at for Beckman, unfortunately. Good question for Anita. Who is in goal for the final 2 games? Here's what will probably happen. It'll probably be Gustafsson against the Kings. Get him one final start. And I don't think there is any other scenario other than Fleury getting that final start at home against the Kraken. I don't think there's any other scenario in play, because if this is indeed it, you want to give the fans an opportunity to show their appreciation for what he has done, not only as a member of the Minnesota Wild, but throughout the course of his career as well. So that is 100% how that's going to play out. It will be interesting to see with Gustafsson what he does against the Kings. I think Jesper's looked good against the Blackhawks and the Sharks. I was like, what team? Oh yeah, it's the Sharks. So I think he did good in those 2 games. And I think you give the rest of the goalies one more. And that'll be that. Trade JoJo and Goudreau to Salt Lake. Maybe it is all of the Arizona employees. So maybe you could get them to take on those 2. I don't know. I'm well past time being done watching those guys. So very much ready to see them move on to the next spot. And honestly, like Jake Lucchini, Vinny Lettieri, I think we've seen to the point that they are they're Iowa guys at this point. Like Lucchini is an Iowa guy. Mason Shaw, I would imagine, will be back. I've seen some Shaw chatter here in the comments. I think he'll be back, but I've seen enough. Yeah, PB's right. Those two are call-ups when other players get hurt. That's about all they're capable of. I mean, like look at the game logs here. Like, let me just see what we got for Lucchini. Lucchini had back-to-back games with a point against Ottawa and Colorado. He also had a goal against Anaheim. But beyond that, he had an assist on February 19th, then did not have another point until March 19th. It's just not consistent enough. Like, is he the one that had all those goals waived? Oh, those cursed offsides. Oh, it's another thing that I am not going to miss about this season is just the amount of goals that have been called off for frame by frame offsides. I do not need to see any more of that. Yeah, this is another good point that Iowa just has they sent a ton of players up to fill in for all of the injured guys on the Minnesota Wild roster, and they didn't really have anything else to fill those spots with. So it was just a lot of shuffled parts all season. And we'll talk about it after the year is officially done. But like the fact that the plan here was basically to just have everybody be healthy. Like there was really no contingency plan. And we saw how quickly that completely derailed. So everybody just needs the off season at this point. Just get everybody healthy and let the theme for next year. The theme for next year should be to let the young players put them in spots to impress. That it would be the best thing that could happen for the Minnesota Wild next year. It's going to be a tough hill to try to get to the postseason next year. But what we have seen from young players is the ability to impress, the ability to step into spots and to exceed expectations. I don't think anybody expected to see what we've seen from Liam Ohgren so far. The fact that he has a goal and an assist in his first two games. Murat Kuznetsov has started to find the score sheet. Had the great tip-in goal against Vegas. So now he's on the board. And you just, instead of just falling back on these veteran players that are just limited in what they can bring to the table, let some young players step into those spots and learn on the fly, impress you. Wouldn't it be fun to be impressed by several players just stepping up and kind of learning roles as they go and being able to make major impacts? Murat Kuznetsov's a great example. Like he should be, if you want to still go with Eriksson Ek as your number one penalty killing center, sure, that's fine. But Kuznetsov needs to be your number two then, because that speed plays. That speed plays, especially on the penalty kill. You just need to, like, I would actually be pretty irritated if we go into next year and it's, well, no, Freddie Gaudreau is going to be your second center on the penalty kill. I don't need to see that again. Like, you should at this point be looking at weakness areas and trying to fill them with different players. Penalty kill, you're going to have to find a different way to go about that, because it just has not worked at all here this season. Just let the kids step into roles, play the youth, let the chips fall where they may. Just evaluate these guys, see where they're at. Give them, if they're not ready, then send them back down with stuff to work on. What's wrong with that? Shark Boy Ben setting up the first week of the offseason very well. We'll dive into all of these different categories as to what all happened this year that led to this team being where we're at right now. And there was a lot. That went adverse. 5-10-4 start. Dean Evison gets fired. Goaltending not able to even be average. Penalty kill being 30th, which, as PB notes, still better than two teams. What is the penalty kill chart looking like these days? I haven't checked this thing in ages. Minnesota Wild still 30th, 73.9%, 72.4% for the Ducks. So pretty solidly entrenched in 30th. Great question on Ovchinnikov. He actually is going to be playing for Toronto for the rest of the season. I didn't know teams did that, but he is on loan for Toronto. So don't be surprised if the Maple Leafs say, "Hey, remember that trade? Just kidding. We don't want to give him to you." No, he's just playing with them for the rest of the year, and then he'll be coming here after. Again, I didn't know teams did that, but here we are. We learn something new every day. I would love this. Let's go. Let's see who the Wilds. Okay, this is a potential conundrum. As of right now, based off of the mock draft for the Tankathon, in which I have not simmed it, I just went with the Wild at 12. Minnesota Wilds are at this current moment mocked to take Tij Iginla, Jerome Iginla's kid. At this point, although, again, I am still on the train of drafting a defenseman. My pick would be Silyev, the 6'7" giant, although Zeev Byam would be fantastic too. We'll see how things play out. I would love Silyev in that spot. Realistically, it is probably going to be Gus and Flower again next year, right? Or do they throw Jesper into the deep end and hope that things work out? This is an interesting question because it seems like it's trending more towards Fleury coming back for another season. And if that's the case, then you either go Fleury and Jesper or Fleury and Gus. I keep going back and forth. I hear the argument that you got to be patient with young goaltenders, especially on the Gustafsson side, with him with this being his second year in the NHL, like second full year of being a starter. I don't know. It is going to depend entirely on what Fleury does, because the point that Jesse made the other day in saying that you would rather Jesper be mentored by Fleury than by Gus, that checks, but I don't know. I don't know. I am going to have to think on that a little bit, but maybe Billy decides to go with both. And if one or the other gets hurt, then you call Jesper up to fill that spot and hang out with the other. It depends. It depends on what you think. It depends on if you think Philip Gustafsson can get closer to what he did last year than this year. If you think that he can fix a lot of the things that have gone wrong this year, then it probably makes sense to keep him. If you don't, then it probably makes sense to deal him to a goalie-hungry franchise, the New Jersey Devils, cough, cough. So, or as the captain notes, you could just have Fleury, you could just have him take over for Freddie Shabbat. His kids are in school here. Maybe he wants to stay on a little longer than simply being a player. Gus, Beckman, and R first to get a top 3 pick. Can't tell me Chicago or San Jose wouldn't be tempted. They would not, Shark Boy Ben. It would take more than that to move up into the top 3. It would take 2 prospects probably and a pick. Because here's the thing with trying to trade up. Those teams, Chicago and San Jose, they have no incentive to take on those players because they're in the long haul. And Macklin Celebrini or any of the other guys at the top of the draft board are good enough to wait on. I would be fine with the Wild taking a swing to try to get up to the top if they're not going to be bad enough to get there themselves. But I think it's going to cost you a lot more than Gustafsson, Adam Beckman, and a first-round pick. That's a lot, but I think it would cost you more. Jesper is ready. Could keep Shabbat as goalie coach and hire Fleury as goalie development coach. Believe we use that wouldn't be a bad route. That wouldn't be a bad route to go. You see this with players all the time, former players that go into the front office as they get put in these development roles. That wouldn't be a bad route to go. It just depends on what Fleury wants to do. I personally don't think he is going to get into coaching. I think he's going to kind of ride off into the sunset when he's done. Maybe he comes back and he does a little TV. I think he mostly is going to take the time to spend with his family once he's done playing. But it wouldn't surprise me if at some point he circles back and is involved, whether it be with the Penguins or the Wilds. time will tell. Reminder that we've got the live show at noon tomorrow, where we'll further dive into these last two games, take a look ahead to the final two games of the week against the Kings Monday and the Kraken on Thursday. With the fact that it is 126, I think I'm going to call it for tonight's postcast. But again, we got the live show tomorrow at noon, later today at noon. So make sure to keep an eye out for that. Make sure to bring your questions. We'll answer those on tomorrow's show. And make sure to hit how early can they approach Kaprizov and try to negotiate his next contract. Are there rules about that, or can they hypothetically start having those conversations now? I think it's, if I recall correctly, I think you can, the off season before your final year of the contract, I think is how that works. So the year before your the off season before your final year of the deal is when you can start to have those conversations. So it's on the way, and it would not surprise me if as soon as eligible, those conversations begin, because it's going to take a while to get everything ironed out. It's going to take a while to get everything ironed out. So the moment, if I'm not correct on that timetable, the moment those talks can happen, they will. Again, like I said a couple of weeks ago, Bill Guerin's future, Bill Guerin's job is entirely dependent on whether or not Kirill re-ups. If Kirill doesn't re-up here, Craig Leopold is going to hold that against him personally. So I would not take that lightly if I was the president of hockey operations. So that is going to be a huge piece of the puzzle going forward. 2 games left after tonight's, and as mentioned, make sure to join us for today's live show at noon. But thank you for joining tonight's postcast. Minnesota Wild win by a score of 6-2. And make sure to like tonight's episode if you enjoyed the content, and make sure to subscribe as well so you don't miss out on any new episodes. Also, make sure, thank you, Ren, for reminding me to plug the Locked On Wild Discord server. I'll post the link here in the comments. If you'd like to join in on the conversations that happen throughout the week, on game days too, make sure to join our Discord server as well. You can find new episodes every Monday through Friday. You're not alone, Sean. I also am not convinced that the Sharks are any good. They didn't look it tonight. Thanks, everybody. We'll have you covered for tomorrow's live show. But until then, this has been yet another edition of the Locked On Wild postcast, all part of the Locked On Podcast Network.